Hi, welcome back to the Online Jewelry Academy. I'm John Ahr and I'm your instructor. And today we're going to make a very simple bracelet. It doesn't require any heat, so there's no soldering involved, and it's actually quite elegant. Now, you can see it's just composed of a repeated link and a hook. So I'm going to show you how to make these elements. And this one would be ready to wear right now, but it's a little short. So I'll show you how to add a link to it if you need to adjust the length for a client. Okay, to make this project, you're going to need a variety of tools. First thing that you're going to need is a pair of diagonal cutters. Now these cutters are great because they'll just quickly snip the end of the wire off. Some people are purists and they always want to cut the end of anything off with their jeweler's saw, but for this project you can work very quickly and this will be just fine. Next thing that I have is a pair of rosary pliers or round nose pliers, where you can see that I've painted the ends of, or the jaws of the pliers with children's nail polish. Now the reason I did this is because that allows you to use this pair of pliers as a ruler or a measuring device so that you could make every single twist and curve exactly like the last one because you know exactly where you did it. I also have here a pair of chain nose pliers with a very sharp point to them. These are like super baby fingers that will get into the tightest place and allow you to make a bend if you need to. I also have a pair of flat nose pliers where the jaws are flat. These are good for holding things and for squishing things down. I also have two pairs of forming pliers. This one here is a half round plier, meaning that one jaw is rounded and the other one's flat. And then this one, it has two rounded jaws to it so that I could either make a bigger curve or a tighter, smaller curve. The other items that you need include a hammer. And this is a simple goldsmith's hammer. It's actually a Cross-Peen Hammer, and it has a nice polished face on it. And this is the side that we're really interested in because we want to make a nice, smooth, shiny surface by hitting this against a bench block, which also has a nice, shiny surface to it. So these two together are going to actually leave traces of a nice smooth surface behind on your work, so no need to polish or clean up. Other things that you're going to need include something to mark your wire with. This is just a big permanent marker. I also need a ruler, and in the jewelry business things are usually done in the metric system, so you might as well get used to using the metric scale. Now in combination with these two, you may want to use this tool. This is a pair of dividers. It looks like a compass that might be used for a geometry assignment, but what this is there's no pencil on either side, and this is basically used to mark metal with, and it maintains a measurement so that you can repeat that measurement over and over again. Now you're going to want to smooth the ends of the wires, and you could use a sanding stick, which is a very common item in the jewelry business. You could use a file. Now if you don't have either of these two things, you can use an emery board. It's basically sandpaper on a stick and it will work just fine. Now, as with every project, I always start by telling you that you need to take precautions to protect yourself. And if you haven't watched the safety video yet, you should probably do that right now or go back at some point before you begin working and look at it. For this project, you really probably only need a pair of safety glasses, and that's just because you're going to be cutting wires and you don't want anything to fly into your eye. Okay, so let's talk about the materials that you're going to be working with. Today I'm going to work with a big piece of copper wire, and you'll notice that I could get this same gauge of wire in silver. I could get it in gold, I could get it in brass, but we're going to be playing with the copper. You can go for the more expensive precious metal if you want to, or you might be able to take your bracelet once you've completed it to a local jeweler and have it plated so that it looks like you spent the money on gold or silver when really it's just copper underneath, and that's fine. If you like, you could go to your local hardware store and get some kind of copper or steel wire to practice with. The steel wire, of course, is going to be a lot less expensive, and it's good enough to practice with until you know how to precisely make all the twists and curves. All right, so let's get started. So what I want to do is I'm going to want to make a link that matches the ones that I already made that are on my chain. Now, I remember what my length was. Each one of these links was 8 centimeters or 80 millimeters in length. So I'll take my permanent marker, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay the wire along the ruler and just mark where I want to cut. Okay, mark the table, not the wire. So anyway, this particular project is going to require that this piece of wire be cut in, or not cut, but divided into 8 equal portions in terms of the measurement. So I might as well do it all right now while I have it in front of me. So we'll mark it at the 40 millimeter or 4 centimeter, the 20, and the 60. Okay, so we have this wire prepared and ready to go. So now I can use the diagonal cutters and cut that piece of wire off. Now if you want to, you can saw the wire with a jeweler's saw, but it's just as easy to snip it with the wire cutters. Okay, what we want to do with this now is we want to prepare the ends of the wire. And to do this, you're going to need the bench block, and you're going to need the flat end of the hammer. And what we want to do is just put the end of the wire barely onto the bench block and just give it a few blows. Okay, and you can see how just striking the end of the wire kind of gives it like a shape of like a canoe oar. It's a little bit wide and then it tapers out. And it might be a little bit sharp, so this was where you could take your emery board and just to make it a little bit smoother and rounder, you're just going to go around like this and knock off the sharp edges. And you want to repeat this on the other side. So once again, you're going to put it barely onto the bench block, give it a few blows, and you're going to perfect that oar shape. Now remember, you want to take care of getting rid of any sharp edges because you never want anybody to say, ouch, when they're wearing a piece of your jewelry. So anyway, you can see now that this piece of wire has 2 flattened ends. Now, this will help to make this link look a little bit more elegant. And what we're going to do is we're going to bend these ends around into curls using the rosary pliers. Now, we want a tight curl, so we're going to use the area that's up near the front of the plier. So I'll either be in that pink or that orange zone of the plier. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab at the very end of the wire, and we're just going to roll this over. And I'll come back and grab it and just roll it like that. So that's the curl that I'm going for. Okay? Now I want to do the same thing on the opposite end of the wire, but I want to be on the other side of the wire. So let me turn this around. We'll grab the end of the wire in the end of the pliers, and I'm going to give this a nice curve as well. Whoops, see, that shot right at me. So it's good that I'm wearing my safety glasses. Okay. Now, it's a good idea to make sure that the curls that you apply to your wire are closed curls. In other words, you don't want them to be left open at all. See, this one's a little bit open, and this one's completely curled over. And that's just so that this isn't going to snag on anything. So I'm going to go back, and I'm going to make sure that this one's nice and tight. So it only takes a couple of seconds. Now, you'll notice that it's planned out. And what you could do, if you know that you're going to need maybe 6 to 8 links in order to make your bracelet or a chain, you can actually work a system where you prepare each wire and do the same operation for each one so that you make sure that they're all uniform. Okay, so now this is the fun part. What I want to do is I want to give this a nice curve. What I'm going for is an S curve shape. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the pliers and I'm going to push one end of the plier into that curl that we just made, and then I'm going to look on the wire and find a nice midway point to put the other jaw of the plier. And then I'm going to loosely bring this around until the end of the wire touches the midsection of the wire. So let me get my hands out of the way and you can see right there. So here's the initial curl, and then here's the curve that I just made. So now I want to bring this other curl all the way around and meet on the opposite side of the midsection of the wire. So let me do that. So remember, you just stick your plier into one end of the curl, find a midway point, and swing it around. So there's that nice S shape that we're going for. And you can see how the flattened edges allow those curls to be a little tighter and a little bit more elegant. Now, the problem is that this could easily pull apart at this point. So what you have to do is secure these two ends. So taking your bench block, what you do is you put the curl that you want to lock down onto the edge of the bench block. And then you just want to forge it just lightly. So you can see what happens is that curl begins to open up a little bit with the tension that you put into it by hammering it. And it's really easy to just push it back into place. But this gives it enough strength that it's not going to open back up again. So let's repeat it on the other side. Okay. And there we have one S link. Now, this by itself is enough to create a nice linkage that's going to create a very elegant looking chain. If you wanted to, you could connect these S loops with jump rings on either side, but it's really not necessary. And you could also use this particular shape to create a clasp. All you'd have to do is just leave one end slightly open to capture the other side. Now, if you want a hook that has a little more tension or grab to it, let me show you how that's made. So let me put this aside. The way that we're going to do this is we're going to use the same gauge of wire because we want these elements to match up and look like they're part of the same family. So taking my ruler once again, this time I'm going to take a slightly longer length of the wire. So I'm going to measure over here and I'm going to say, gee, I need approximately 130 millimeters or 13 centimeters to do this. So I've got it marked with my fingers, and I'll just clip this off. Okay. So now what I want to do is I want to initiate the end of the hook itself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to figure out approximately how long I want the hook to be and then double that. So I think I want the hook, once it's made, to be about, maybe 3/4 of an inch long or about that big. So I'm going to double that and say, okay, that's about right. And I'm just going to eyeball it, and I'm going to go from where I think the center should be, and I'm going to bend over a nice loop like this. Okay? So it sort of looks like a shepherd's staff right now. And what I want to do is I want to tighten this curve. Now there's a couple of ways of doing it. The easiest way is just put your pliers back on it. Now be careful, don't slip. And what you want to do is just apply pressure on either side of the curve in order to close it down. Now make sure that you're working with a softened or annealed wire, otherwise you might have trouble doing this. But now you can see how this little wire is closed in on itself. Okay? Now this will actually become the end of the clasp. So what we're going to do now is we're going to pick this piece up, and I'm going to slide my square nose pliers right inside of those two wires, just like that. And I want to give this a nice tug to create a nice right angle. So I've created like a capital letter L. Okay? So what I need to do now is create the juncture or the loop that's going to attach to the linkages. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to use, I'll show you how I'm going to use my little forming pliers for this. You could use any type of plier. You could use your rosary pliers. But I'm going to come into this corner of the bends that I made, and I'm just going to go over, and now I'll grab down here, and let's see, I want to use the smaller end. So I'll put that back in, and then I'm going to swing under. So now I have basically the wire against itself doing a little bit of a loop-to-loop. Okay? Now it's important at this point that this is where you're going to attach this to your chain. So I'll bring back this one linkage so that you can see how it's done. What I want to do is I want to take that loop and slightly open it up. So I'm going to grab a pair of pliers, grab one side of the loop, and then just pull the wire open to release it a little bit. And then this way, your link can slide right onto it. Okay? Then what you want to do is you want to close that loop down. So I'm going to use a pair of pliers to shut the loop down. I'm just going to pinch across it. And now what I want to do is I want to use this longer end of the wire to wrap around the two segments of wire that are touching each other. So I'm just going to go around like so. Now what this is going to do is this is going to create an area on your hook that will cause a little bit of friction. Okay, so I want this to be a tightly compacted spring-like coil, just like when we make any wire wrap object. We want any of our spirals to wrap around tightly. So I'm going to continue this. And if the wire gets too short or too stiff, just pick up another pair of pliers and keep working. So in this case, I'm probably going to switch to my chain nose pliers, and then I'll use my flat nose pliers and just continue to bring this around. Now if it's a little long or you have a funny little area that just doesn't look like it should be part of the whole deal, then what you could do is you could just snap that off with your diagonal cutters. I'm just going to tuck this little piece in it and work it around. Okay, so there you go. It's almost finished. Now to make this into a hook, what you want to do is use your rosary pliers, grab the end of the object where the wire makes its curve, and just give it a slight bend up. And the way that I think of it is almost like it's the end of a ski. It just kind of comes and swoops up a little bit. Then what you can do is, just like when you made the S hook, you're going to put one end of your plier onto that little curve that you just made, and put the other end of the plier at a nice midway point and bring it around. Okay? Like so. So now you have a nice little hook that will create a little bit of friction in this middle section, so that it won't easily come apart. So now you know how to make the basic elements for a simple bracelet. So in this case, what I'm going to do while this is open is I'm going to come back and I'm just going to add it to my chain. And all I have to do is just push it together, and now it's securely added to the end of the chain. So the hook on the other side will easily grasp it with a little bit of tension and allow it to close. So you can see how each of these very elegant little links match up with the clasp in terms of the gauge or the size of the material. So they look like they're all part of the same family. Thanks for watching. Check out our other videos and products online. And again, thanks for coming and visiting us at the Online Jewelry Academy. Bye.